Today's episode 89 of the Deep Dives, and we're going to be talking about some hard stuff. It's 9/11 when we're recording this, and we're just coming off the assassination of Charlie Kirk. We're going to be looking at it from, as best we can, a Christian perspective, but it's going to be a little difficult, so be forewarned.
Yes.
Episode 89.
Last night in Gun Club, I started by saying, and I'll start our podcast by saying this: I'm upset. I'm hurt. I'll just say it. I'm pissed, a little confused, angry. I've shed a tear just because of the permanency or the audacity of human beings. Charlie Kirk had a 1-year-old or a 2-year-old. One of his daughters was born in 2022. One was born last year, 2024. His wife that he married in 2021, Erica, went to bed last night without her husband. The babies went to bed last night asking where their daddy was. And I don't know what to say about that. I don't know how somebody can come to a conclusion that what I'm here to do is to kill that guy. I don't know. We can talk about mental illness. We can talk about whatever you want to talk about. But the result of the planning of killing this man, I don't think there's a punishment tough enough for somebody like that. I didn't know a lot about Charlie Kirk. I saw a lot of his videos on YouTube, and I loved him. Man, I loved it. Every time I watched one of his videos, it was one of those holes that I went down to keep watching. How he navigated a conversation was an art. It was an art, man. He's so smart, so good, so intelligent, so sharp, and yes, so aggressive sometimes. His organization that he started, called the Turning Point USA, he co-founded it in 2012 when he was about 18 years old. He went to Harper University, which is a community college, for a little bit of time, and he withdrew in order to spend all of his time working on Turning Point USA. And this organization did exactly what you see him doing on YouTube. They went from campus to campus to campus, trying to bring, quote, enlightenment. I don't want to say enlightenment because that sounds like a left-leaning idea, but trying to talk about Christ, trying to talk about common sense stuff to me. And what I loved the most, Josh, about seeing these conversations is that I love seeing a college student, mostly college student, come up with a book, or they come up with whatever, and you can see it in their eyes. Oh, I got him. You know what I mean? They're saying, nobody's ever asked him this question before. And whenever he says this, I'm going to say that. And the second that whatever comes out of this student's mouth and Charlie Kirk says something back to him, it's done. You know what I mean? There might be an exchange of something, but Charlie Kirk always held them accountable for what you said. No, you just said this. So if you said this, then you're assuming this. It's not right what you're saying. And that resulted in a lot of the students just walking away from the microphone or changing topics or whatever. And he was a master at holding people responsible for what they're saying, trying to prove. Many of them were trying to prove the Bible being wrong. A lot of people went up and said, so Charlie, you claim to be a Christian, right? and that's the way that they start, and he gives an answer, then what about this? And then that second question that they think is so profound is so shallow. It's so easily rebuted or proven to be wrong or whatever, whenever they think that they have it, they have the thing that's going to stump Charlie Kirk.
Well, that's kind of how modern debate has gotten, is like there's very few long form discussions anymore. It's more like we live in the era of memes, and when you look at trends in like TikTok or Instagram Reels or whatever, Facebook posts, it's like here's a small snippet of information, and this is going to be a gotcha.
Yeah.
And the other person doesn't really have an opportunity to respond. It's just kind of left on the table. And that's kind of how debate has gone. And I see a lot of that in those videos with Charlie Kirk and other people, is they'll come up and they'll be like, well, you claim to be this. Well, then what about this? Ha. And leave it there. And he was really skilled at not just rebutting it, but kind of disarming that, because he didn't come at them with the same emotional vigor that they came at him.
Yeah.
It was very like, okay, let's analyze this. Let's look at the history of where that kind of thought comes from, and let's pick it apart.
Yeah.
And I think one of the things that angers people who are already angry is if you don't come back to them with as much anger, and you just calmly pick it apart. And I think that's probably why he, kind of two sides of the same coin, why he was so beloved by people like us who would agree with most of the things that he say, and why he would anger people who disagreed with what he said.
Right. Yeah. I learned a long time ago. I wish I would practice this more, but I learned a long time ago in conversations and in sales and just debates. Once the person that you're talking to becomes emotional, you've won the battle, pretty much. If you can't just state what it is, me and my whole family, we're all emotional people. We talk with our hands.
And that's another thing that he was really good at, that I try to emulate when I'm talking to people, is how to remain calm when you've personally been offended by the person you're talking to.
Yeah.
How do you kind of separate that?
Right. Well, Josh, so he was a polarizing figure. I think by definition, boy, was he polarizing.
Right.
So my question to you is this: is the time over that we should be in public and be so vulnerable, like his organization did? He went to campuses. This is what his organization did. He went to campuses and talked to anybody. Put a microphone out there. Anybody come up and talk, and we'll have a discussion. But he is a sitting duck, man. If somebody wanted, anybody with a laser pointer anywhere around could, from all the videos I saw of his organization, his presentations, anybody could point a laser pointer at him wherever they are in the crowd, and there's no barrier. He's got two really nice looking bodyguards on the left or right, so nobody will brush the stage. But as we saw yesterday, that didn't do anybody any good. Is that time over where we make ourselves so vulnerable to go out?
Not at all.
So why do you say that, and why should we keep doing it? President Trump almost got killed, and now Charlie Kirk.
All throughout history, there have been assassination attempts and efforts to shut people down. But so let's go back to like 1st and 2nd century AD, when the church was being outright persecuted by the Roman Empire. It was against the law not just to be a Christian, but it was seriously against the law to be out proselytizing for Christianity.
Okay.
And yet, what did Jesus tell his disciples to do? What was that Great Commission? Start in Jerusalem, go to Judea, go to Samaria, go to the rest of the world.
Yeah.
He never said, unless unless they don't want you to, or unless it starts getting violent. He said, no, there's a message that goes beyond. There's a message that we're taking that's bigger than us. And I think Charlie Kirk would agree, just based on the stuff that he said, because he was a devout Christian, very knowledgeable in Scripture when you look at his religious debates and stuff.
Yeah.
And he was a public figure who traveled with a security team, so he knew the risks, and yet he took them. He took them anyway because he knew that the message of Christ, the message of the gospel, and the ripple effects of that message, how it trickles into politics and societal ideologies and stuff like that. There was an importance about that went beyond his ability to remain safe. And while he took measures to minimize that risk as much as possible with security and everything, he ultimately realized, and even tweeted, shortly before his death, Jesus died to make men free. He tweeted that or posted that in a public forum, which is a very polarizing ideology too. But he did that over and over again. In our small group on Wednesday nights, we've been going through not just the statement of faith of our church, but the roots of it and where it came from.
Yeah. It's a great lesson, by the way, Josh. Really, you're doing a great job with that.
Well, all of that stuff was born in an era where Christians were being killed left and right. And persecuted and all that stuff. And had that persecution won, and Christians said, it's no longer wise to go out and spread the gospel message and speak truth, then where would the church be today?
Do you think there should be some adjustment to it? Should there be,
Yeah, I'm not saying I'm not saying we be dumb about it.
Yeah.
The Bible tells us, Christians, we're wise as serpents, even though we're gentle as doves. So it's not, and even Jesus instructed. We talk about this in Gun Club, right? He instructed. He wasn't anti self-defense. He wasn't anti-weapons.
Right.
Even Israel, God instructed them to build their armies and all that kind of stuff. And as they went through and conquered the land of Canaan, God was instructing them on military strategy and all that kind of stuff. And then even when they came back after the Babylonian captivity, Nehemiah instructed them, with one hand you have a trowel and you're building the wall, the other hand you have a spear. Because they were in enemy territory, bringing back the presence of God, and the territory that they were in was opposed to that, and yet they still went back and did it. So we do take steps to minimize the probability that we'll be in danger, but realize that none of us are guaranteed tomorrow.
Yeah.
And I think if we ever do get to the point where we're more afraid of the enemy than if our fear of the enemy begins to exceed how important we see the message we bring, I think that's when we start to see a losing battle.
Gotcha. Do you know much? Do you know much about him? Do you know much about his background or anything like that?
I'm not a Charlie Kirk expert.
Yeah,
I've seen a lot of his videos, and I remember kind of following him as he started to gain notoriety.
Okay.
Started getting into Turning Point and started holding college debates and stuff. So I've followed him as a public figure, but I don't know a lot about his background.
Well, I didn't either. My wife, Donna, would listen to his podcast every day whenever she gets off work. She happens to get off work at the same time his podcast comes on locally. And she's it's funny how we feel that sense of deep loss whenever somebody passes that we don't literally know, but we have a connection with them anyway. And she's certainly feeling that loss today. I was curious about him quitting college and starting his organization. It reminds me of a good friend of mine, Robert Smith, back in Lumberton, where I grew up. This guy I handed him Stephen King's Stand, It's about that thick. Is that about right?
Yeah,
About
the movie
thick,
that they
Chris?
made out of was 8 hours long.
And the book was at least, it was one of those small paperback books.
Yeah.
You know, that we would pass around each other. We read it. Handed it to him on Tuesday. He gave it back to me on Wednesday. Said, "Man, that's a great book." I said, "What do you mean it's a great book?" He said, "I read it." I said, "Robert, no, you did not read that book." I said, "Yeah, I read it." He would read it. He would, whatever he'd read from the time he got that book until the time was given, time to give it back. What I'm saying is that he would read in class. He'd read after class. He was bored with what people were trying to teach him. I'd be in class with him, and a teacher would say, "Does anybody know the answer? Da 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 da. Anyone? Anyone?" Robert's in the back reading his book. He tunes in, just to, his words, to shut her up. He raises his hand, answers the question, goes back to reading his book.
Yeah.
That's what that's what Charlie Kirk reminds me of. Don't know him from anybody, but he seems to have that type of intelligence that's just a gift, and that perhaps, you know, the education he was getting at Harper College was holding him back at the time. You know, you agree with that? Do you think that he was just a gifted intellectual?
Yeah, and Charlie Kirk even had a lot to say about the like modern academic environment.
Yeah.
We tend to fall into the assumption that modern academics is the only way that people can learn successfully, and that's not true, especially today. When you look at a lot of the geniuses in history, like take Isaac Newton, for example, his curiosity was what spawned his all of his academic advancement, because when he was young, he was even a bad student, but it was his own curiosity, and there's even a turning point in Isaac Newton's life when he turned around and fought back against a bully, and something flipped in his mind, and that's when his academic side really took off. And it wasn't long before even his own teachers said that he's more advanced than we are in his learning. And so some people just have that kind of mindset where they don't do well in an academic environment, not because they're dumb, but because their brain works on a different plane of motivation than the academic environment tends to cater to. I think Charlie Kirk's a good example of that. I think Einstein was a good example of that. Isaac Newton obviously was.
Wow.
A lot of the great thinkers were like that.
Wow. To put him in the same category as those, that's saying a whole lot. And he was very young, you know. He was a young guy, really up and coming. Would you say that he was a evangelist that talked about politics and education, or would you say he's the other way around?
That's a difficult one. I think he got really interested in the ideology behind politics, and his faith strengthened that.
Yeah.
I know that's kind of, well, I was going to say, I know that's kind of the case with me, but that's not really true. I don't know. That one's hard to say, because I'm thinking about how my own brain works. The three favorite things I love to talk about is obviously math and science, because I'm an engineer, but I love talking about religion and philosophy. And he was probably similar to that. Like,
right.
The things he feels passionate about, ideology. Well, probably his biggest passion is ideology, and because that's his biggest passion, the two main roads to that is religion and politics. I think it's like George Washington said, that two indispensable supports of government is religion and morality. And so if you're the kind of mind that likes thinking about government and how man should be governed and how nations interact with each other, then it's not a stretch It's not a long distance between that and being really passionate about religion and morality.
Yeah, I'll agree with that, because what I've seen, religion always comes up, but it's not the first topic they talk. They talk about ideology, is what they do. They start, and of course, like you said, religion always comes into that.
Yeah.
There was there's a bunch of videos with transgender people, so we talked about that a whole lot, and talked about race a whole lot, and talked about religion a whole. It was part. He happened to be a Christian, happened to be a sold out Christ lover, that had these thoughts and these ideologies, and was not. This is the thing that I loved about him. Wasn't scared at all to say it in this environment. We must admit that we all kind of have to be careful about what we say around who we say. At least have a sense of our room that we're talking about. But he invited college campuses to come debate him about what he thought and what he felt was real.
Yeah,
that's courage.
Yeah, and if we want to do his legacy any type of honor, then when one Charlie Kirk goes down, two have to spring up in his place.
There are other people that do what he does, and I don't know their names, but there's one guy who goes out. He just stands in the middle of a common area on campuses and has a microphone. And has a microphone over here, and he does the same thing. Do you know his name, Chris?
I don't know his name. I have seen him.
Seen him, yeah.
And he's
Clint something, I think.
That sounds familiar.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
I can't help but think that a person that's in the same genre is going to pick up momentum, and honor him that way. He was really good. Some people just have that gift. You know what I mean? That gift of being able to.
But even more personal than that. We should be. What'd you say?
Caitlin Bennett.
That's that guy you're talking. The girl.
Yeah, the guy you're talking about. Yeah, there's Caitlin Bennett, who's a girl that does that, but you're talking about the preacher who does it.
Yeah.
I think his last name starts with a K. Okay. But anyway, if we're to do, whatever legacy that Charlie Kirk would want to have. I think part of that is we don't look for someone else to be the new Charlie Kirk or whatever, but
that's a good point.
We're strengthened by his example to where we all pick up that mantle collectively.
I love that. That's a great way of pointing that out. And some of the ways that you and I do that, and Chris does that, is this podcast. And you and I do the Wednesday night class. So the reason I'm saying that is that you don't have to go get an audience out in a college campus and do that. Teach a class at your church. Teach a class at the YMCA. Do something that you are able to influence people on a consistent basis.
Talk to the people you work with.
Yeah, absolutely. Talk to people
as you interact with your customers or your clients. Or
that's right. That's right.
People you encounter at the grocery store.
Yeah. People are so easy to get along with these days.
Right.
Just walk up and start talking to them. You like that, Chris? Right? You love people. Chris loves people. Chris loves going to Publix and just starting up a conversation with a stranger.
Don't say Publix in the same frame as my name.
Kidding.
I have three targets on me every time I walk into Publix for buggies getting run over.
People were hitting you with buggies, so you have a target on your heel, I think.
Well, one of the other things I want to kind of point out about this, though, and it comes from there's an account in the Old Testament of a prophet named Zechariah. This isn't the same Zechariah that wrote the book of Zechariah.
Not the short one in the tree.
Well, that was Zacchaeus.
Oh, Zacchaeus.
Yeah, that was in the New Testament.
I'm such a Bible scholar. Go ahead, John.
But there are two Zechariahs in the Old Testament. One wrote the book of Zechariah. He was he came a couple hundred years after the first Zechariah. So in 2 Chronicles 24, this is during the reign of Joash. So Joash is an interesting guy. Guess how old he was when he started reigning as king of the southern kingdom of Judah?
54.
7.
So close.
Joash was 7 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned 40 years in Jerusalem. And he was, for the most part, he was a good king. The primary reason for that is given to us in verse 2. Joash did that which was right in the sight of the Lord all the days of Jehoiada the priest. So Jehoiada, who was the priest at the time, was kind of like Joash's mentor. And so as he's growing up, he's following the advice of this priest, and did a lot of good things to the point where his reign overall was characterized as him doing that which was right in the eyes of the Lord. However, when you get down to verse 15, it said, but Jehoiada waxed old and was full of days when he died. 130 years old was he when he died. And they buried him in the city of David among the kings, because he had done good in Israel, both toward God and toward his house. Now after the death of Jehoiada came the princes of Judah and made obeisance to the king. Then the king hearkened unto them, and they left the house of the Lord God of their fathers, and served groves and idols. And wrath came upon Judah and Jerusalem for this their trespass. So after the death of this mentor, Joash started not listening to the advice, the godly advice of the priest, but he started listening to the worldly advice of other people, the family heads in the nation of Judah, and they left the temple of God and started here again serving the groves and the idols, and the wrath came upon Judah and Jerusalem for their trespass. And then verse 19 it says, yet he sent prophets to them, talking about God. God sent prophets to them to bring them again unto the Lord, and they testified against them, but they would not give ear. And the Spirit of God came upon Zechariah, the son of Jehoiada the priest, which stood above the people, and said unto them, thus saith God, why transgress ye the commandments of the Lord, that ye cannot prosper? Because ye have forsaken the Lord, he hath also forsaken you. Now there's a common message there between what Zechariah was telling the nation of Judah at the time, and what Charlie Kirk is telling the nation of America during our time, and that is, there's a wisdom in following the precepts and the commandments that are given to us in Scripture, because this is the creator of everything, the source of that objective morality, and all the issues that we see in modern politics now, whether it's the degradation of the home, whether it's the degradation of our view of sex or gender or racism, just whatever it is, it's counter to what Scripture tells us. And Charlie Kirk's central message was, we have to get back to this. We have to get back to these biblical concepts. And it was the same message that Zechariah brought to the southern kingdom. Verse 21, here again, some common elements. They conspired against him and stoned him with stones at the commandment of the king in the court of the house of the Lord. This was the same king, Joash, who was following the advice of the former priest. But now Zechariah comes along with the same message, and Joash commands everyone to stone him. And so Zechariah was assassinated. He was assassinated in public. They conspired against him and stoned him with stones at the commandment of the king in the court of the house of the Lord. We look at an event like what occurred yesterday when Charlie Kirk was assassinated in public for saying the things that he did, and we think, is this the turning point in America? What do we learn from this? Is this going to result in civil war? Is it going to be, should we who are conservatives rise up and start fighting fire with fire and attacking the other side? There's all those conversations that keep happening. But it's interesting what Jesus said about this guy in the New Testament, because over in Matthew 23, Jesus is basically bringing the same message to his fellow Jews, and mainly the scribes and the Pharisees in Matthew 23. And he mentions Zechariah and what that whole situation meant. And chapter 23 is kind of eye-opening, because multiple times he just keeps saying, "Woe unto you, scribes and Pharisees! Woe unto you, scribes and Pharisees!" And he starts giving them example after example after example of how far they've gotten from God, and what kind of repercussions are associated with that. Just a big history lesson. But 34, Matthew 23, verse 34, Jesus said, "Behold, I send unto you prophets and wise men and scribes, and some of them ye shall kill and crucify, and some of them ye shall scourge in your synagogues and persecute them from city to city, that upon you may come all the righteous blood shed upon the earth, from the blood of the righteous Abel to the blood of Zacharias, son of Barachias, whom ye slew between the temple and the altar." So he called their memory back to when they killed Zacharias in the court of the temple, and said, even though he brought this message to you, it didn't change anything about you. But what it did serve as, this is an example of just how many times the truth was brought to you and you rejected it. And he says, "Verily I say unto you, all these things shall come upon this generation. O Jerusalem, Jerusalem, thou that killest the prophets and stonest them which are sent to thee, how often would I have gathered thy children together, even as a hen gathered her chickens under her wings, and ye would not? Behold, your house is left unto you desolate. For I say unto you, ye shall not see me henceforth, till ye shall say, Blessed is he that comes in the name of the Lord." So that was used as, this is justification as to why judgment's going to come, because you've done this, you've done this, you've done this. Part of that list was, I've sent you prophets, I've sent you people that brought the message of truth, and you rejected them time and time again. And so destruction is going to come, and this nation is going to go away until at some point in the future you recognize your mistake and you come back to me, and then I'll restore you. And that might be where we are, because that exact same scenario has happened now.
Yeah.
And so it might be an indictment rather than a turning point.
Okay.
But regardless, when we look at the pattern of Scripture, when we look at the pattern of history today, we can always see that there is someone in control of it. And our challenge as Christians is to make sure whose side that we're on. It might not always be, strategically or tactically the side that always comes out on top, in the intermediate, but we know whose side eventually wins and whose side we want to be on.
Thanks for that, Josh. I want to transition real quick here. We're blessed enough to have Chris's much better half in the room with us, J-Dell. And J-Dell does not have a microphone or a camera on her, but she said whenever we were coming in that it used to be that things like this, and I think you talked about 9/11, or somebody mentioned 9/11, that used to galvanize us, but now it tends to break us apart. Let's talk about 9/11 a little bit. But it's September 11th, 2025 right now. Yesterday, Charlie Kirk was assassinated. That's a lot to take in a 24-hour period. But let's transition over to 9/11. Whenever it happened, I remember feeling that galvanization,
right?
Of whenever Bush was standing up and saying, "We're going to find you," and we're going to everybody, the D's and the R's didn't exist for a little bit of time,
for about 30 seconds.
For about 30 seconds, it seemed like that. Is there anything different today? Do you feel that? Well, first of all, let me ask this: what were you doing whenever I'll just say whenever the towers fell, where were you? What were you doing whenever that happened?
I had just graduated college the year, because it was 2002. I graduated in 2001. I was actually welding on an assembly line. Wait, did it happen in 2002?
2001.
2001. Okay, that's right. It happened in 2001. I was welding on an assembly line. It was my first job right out of college, and I remember being on the factory floor because I was looking for an engineering job, but I had to pay rent until then, so I was welding.
Yep. Okay.
And
How about that? Something else you did do that I didn't know you did.
Yep. Those big toolboxes that go in the back of pickup trucks.
Yeah.
It was a company that makes those here in Pensacola. And so I was the guy that welds the hinges on the big lids.
Okay.
And from time to time, I would TIG weld the seams to the to the boxes. But anyway, so I'm standing there in my station welding away, and all of a sudden, people start talking about like something bad happened or whatever. Like there was kind of like this weird air of something's going on.
Yeah, you felt something. You
Yeah.
could see movement that's odd and
And as the time went on, people start like running around. Airplanes crashed into the World Trade Center, and at first I was like, no, I haven't. They would sense those a mile off and would keep that from happening. There's a security protocols, all this stuff, And then more people are like, no, second one crashed into the tower and all this stuff, and then like it started to become real, and so then
Undeniable.
just all the work stopped, and everybody just kind of like gathered around and was watching this play out, and the owner of the company came in and he started talking to us and giving us an update on everything, but yeah, it was kind of surreal because
excuse me.
when you're at work and you're doing other stuff and this just kind of like becomes reality, it doesn't seem like it's reality until later that day.
I think we call that normalcy bias.
Yeah.
Something interrupts your normal life, your normal day, and you deny it because your mind isn't used to hearing, feeling, sensing something like that. I was a social worker at the time, and I was in a house. It was a strange environment. The room was half this size, and one of those big console TVs that sat on the floor was in front of us at our feet. We were looking down like this, and I was having a conversation with another social worker with a grandmother who left marks on her grandchild whenever she was trying to disciplining her, the grandchild. And the other person was talking more about how you can't do that these days. And this was 01.
Yeah.
You can't discipline your child. And I was looking at the grandmother going, that's exactly what my grandmother did to me. That's what my mother did to me. So I wasn't really on board with telling her it's not the right thing to do. But the fact was that we were there to warn her that her children might be taken away.
Right.
If she continues to do this. And the lady, she was so nice. But whenever we were talking to her, I looked down at the TV. Towers were falling. And I knew before going to the meeting this was happening, but the towers fell. The first one fell whenever I was in the meeting. And you're talking about being in an environment but not being there.
Yeah.
My goodness gracious. It was, and nobody was saying anything about what was going on. It was as if it wasn't happening. But I wasn't the one engaging her. I was watching what was going on, and I don't remember what happened after that.
Yeah.
It was that normalcy bias. My mind went to, I wonder how all those people are getting out of there so quickly.
Right.
And I remember thinking, it's going to be interesting to hear some of the stories that these people have gone through before they were killed. I just couldn't wrap my mind around it. It didn't make any sense that these people were being incinerated. It just I didn't have that ability, until after it all happened. That's that normalcy bias that we
Yeah.
fight every day.
When you grew up, did your parents talk the same way about the JFK assassination? Like, do you remember your parents ever talking about
Let's
that?
see, he was assassinated in what year?
63.
63. Well, I was born in 64. But yeah, it was the same. I remember reading about it and hearing mom and dad talk about it, and it was kind of the same thing. Yes, it was. It was a point in time where everybody knows where they were.
Yeah.
It was a change.
I think 9/11 is our generation's
Yeah.
JFK assassination.
Yeah, I think so. We had one guy that was at 9/11 that did a presentation at our church. They've since gone to another church, but he was there's a very famous, iconic picture of him carrying a lady out of the towers, and they're both filled with soot. He did a presentation which was very powerful, and we still have one man that was in the Pentagon whenever the Pentagon got hit. He's a member of our church, and we were trying to, whenever we get set up to have a guest, I've asked him to come in and talk to us about his experience.
Yeah.
He said that he would, but it's just something that we'll never forget. We wanted to give, I guess I want to say, honor to that today, or mention it today, whatever the appropriate way of saying that is. It's 9/11, and we still appreciate, we still think about the people that have lost their lives and their family members and so forth. It's something that I don't want to forget.
Yeah.
Right. You want to continue to remember that and learn from it however we can. I don't know how that is, but things have changed certainly since then.
Absolutely.
And let's see, tonight, you and I are being, and you, Chris, and Jadell are going to
A large gathering of people of conservative mindsets.
what a great time to do that. And we can't be armed.
Right.
So that's what we're going to do. We're going to go to a thing called Snow, Sportsman's Night Out tonight. We are required not to be armed. I'll just put it that way. And we're going to be in this between 5 and 6. I think our goal is 6,000 people this time. That means this stadium will be filled up with 6,000 people, I believe. And conservative Christian speakers are going to be on stage talking, very vulnerable. And as of last night, one of the security people at our church said that the Pensacola police and perhaps the deputies are going to do the security. That I feel much better about than any other. Let me finish. I feel better about that than having the church security team do the security. You've got to agree with that. You've got to feel better.
There's kind of tiers, right?
There's tiers. The church security team.
It's like no security, church security team, police, something else.
And we're at the police level.
Right.
Now, I can get tactically, they have to have more going on than a church security thing, right? So you have to, I am not comfortable putting my safety, and I know I can speak for everybody in this room, I'm not comfortable putting my safety in anybody's hands except for mine.
Right.
That we are the ultimate saviors when it comes to being securing our families and our lives. That's what we believe, and that's what.
Yeah. How many people are usually in there? Like 5,000, 6,000?
5,000 for the last couple of years, and we're going for 6,000.
It's one of those things where if you're playing the odds, if there's 5,000 people, and let's say even let's err on the side of caution, say 100 policemen, that means one policeman is taking care of 50 people. That's not good odds.
No.
I would feel more comfortable to, in addition to that, having my own means of defense.
Makes sense to me. It just makes sense to me,
Right.
Josh. Of course, I'm not always a clear thinker, but if I bring Donna, that's a 50% of us can
Right.
protect us, not one on 5,000.
It's a game of probability too, because from the perspective of the people putting on the event, they're looking at it as, do we want 5,000 people having guns, or do we want 100 people having guns? Because if 100 people have, let's take that one step back. Do we want 5,000 people potentially having guns, or far fewer than that potentially having guns, but we know 100 people on our side have guns? So from their perspective, I can see why they would say, we're not letting firearms in because it minimizes the probability of someone with the wrong intent bringing a gun in. It doesn't eliminate the possibility overall, which is why, from our perspective, I would love to have my own gun, and I'm sure if there's 5,000 other people who would love to have their own gun. But it's that competition of who's allowed to make the decision or not. I can just make the decision. I'm just not going to go to a crowded place.
Right. That's right. That's what that's the decision I usually make.
Yeah. I can't make that decision. Well, I can make that decision today, but I've chosen not to, just because of what I'm
Right.
there to promote our gun club small group and to invite people on. So I'm, in spite of the risk, I'm doing it.
So you, J. Dell, and Chris will be representing Hollow Point, our gun club, and I will be there as a photographer.
Yep.
I would not be there if I wasn't there as a photographer. There's just no way. If I wasn't, I'm not going to go anywhere like that, sit to be entertained with that many people.
Right.
Vulnerable as it is, especially the timing the way it is. It's just, that's kind of what I was talking about. Has things changed, evolved, or whatever? It's changed in my mind to make decisions like that. Just to stay out of that potential harm.
Fortunately, I know that there's a very low probability that in a crowd that size, I'll be the target.
It's very low probability.
Yeah.
It's very, very little.
The probability is not zero.
Yeah.
Especially when it comes to bullets whose trajectory is not predictable. But yeah.
I'm going to take a risk here, and I'm going to talk a little bit about what we talked about last night in Hollow Point.
Okay.
I think the likelihood of us being hit with friendly fire is higher than us being hit with non-friendly fire. In the environments that we're talking about, because I just think that there's too much. There's too much sense of false security whenever somebody owns a gun and they don't take it upon themselves to get some training with that firearm. Let
me add some context to this.
Yes.
Because in the conversation that we had with our gun club last night, it was in a case where there's an active shooter, you have a gun, what are you going to do? And there's usually two opposing views. One is, I'm going to get the heck out of there, or I'm going to go chase after the guy. And the comment that was made was, in a church like what we have, there seems to be this association with, now that I have a pistol, I have a vigilante mindset. And oftentimes the vigilante mindset isn't backed by the amount of tactical training needed to be successful in that. And so the fear is, in a church like ours, where a lot of people are carrying and a lot of people have that vigilante mindset, people are just going to start opening up and fire. And who's to say that the active shooter will be identified properly? If you're just shooting at someone who's also shooting, are you shooting at the bad guy, or are you shooting at a fellow good guy? And are you aware of what your target is and what's behind it? Am I behind that target? Am I in the middle between you and that target? So in an environment like that, I almost feel a little bit more like my goal is going to be get down, get out of the line of fire, get out of there.
Yep.
And then let the rest take its course.
Right.
There's going to be enough vigilantes going after the guy.
Right. Yeah, there is.
I'm there to protect myself and my family.
And I think that us that have been within gun club for a while, I've been there since day one. I think you've been there since day one too. I think our opinion in this is a little more educated than our listeners and viewers might think, because we've seen hundreds of people come through the gun club, and we've seen people come in with a certain attitude, and if they have that attitude, they generally don't come back. Now, I know for a fact I came into the first gun club a little late because there was a misunderstanding on the timing. I came into a class where people were sitting in a table in a circle. Everybody had their gun out, and every gun was not safety checked, and it was pointing. Everybody's gun was pointing at somebody.
Everybody else.
Everybody's gun was pointing at somebody, and I looked at that and I went, "Oh my gosh!" So I just sat there, and then I went home.
You stood in the middle of the circle?
I came up to the table as best I could, sat and just listened to them talking, and they were talking about everything that we don't stand for as a gun club. I'll tell you what, I'd just take out my gun and I'd shoot them. That's what they were having this conversation. And I went home and I started writing out policies and procedures. We won't have our guns. We won't see them. And at the time, I had one person being the sergeant at arms. So and so has the right to ask you to see his gun if you come in here. All this stuff. I never thought I'd have to do that.
Yeah.
But people that have those people, I can tell you, none of them came back to the gun club after they saw the policies and procedures that I wrote. Well, that's not what I'm about. Okay. What I'm saying is those are the most of the people that are carrying guns.
Yeah, and it's not to say that mindset's not valid in some circumstances. It's kind of like, when you go back to Ecclesiastes, one of the most famous excerpts from Ecclesiastes is there's a time for this and there's a time for this, a time for this and a time for this. And we kind of approach that idea the same way. There are times when, yes, you're going to be put into a position where you have to use your firearm offensively. There are a lot of times where you're going to have to use it defensively. What we try to, as best we can with the experience we have, try to delineate between those two extremes is where do we apply wisdom there? When is it acceptable to go on the offense with our firearm? When is it wise to go on the defense with our firearm? Because there is no hard line between those two. There's a football field of gray area between those, and every person stands in a different spot.
Right. We had a new guy last night come in who I hope comes back. But I asked the question that you said, what do you do as a concealed carry person? Do you go after the person that is do you run towards fire, or do you want to run away? Everybody in the room had been there before for quite some time, and they said one variation of protect my family, get away. He said, I'd probably run and halfway through the class, he said, I want to amend my, did you hear him say that? So I think people expect us to be a certain way.
Right.
And then are surprised to find out that we say the firearm is the last resort, extreme last resort.
Well, one of the things we've always talked about in that class was the level of your training.
Right.
Period.
Yep.
But in a stressful actual combat type situation or a threat situation, you're only about 10 to 20% effective as the maximum level of training.
There you go.
That you
fall back to your training.
And you're going to go to the minimum level of your training.
That's right.
And that's the scary part.
That's right.
If you already only have 8 or 10% training, you're more of a threat to yourself and everybody else.
Yep.
And, I'm a little different in that because I've had a lot more extensive training. But even then, I don't get to go practice at the range like I used to.
Right.
So right now, I'm probably not as effective as I would have been 2 years ago.
Right. So knowing your training, that's an extremely good point, Chris.
Yeah.
Know your training, and just, if you're more apt to get into a confrontation because you're carrying, I don't want you carrying. That's a harsh statement, but I think you have the wrong mindset. If you're more than likely to get into a confrontation if you're carrying than if you're not carrying, that's the wrong mindset in my opinion.
But that's also why in our gun club, I think more importantly is we don't just talk about guns, but it's half guns and half Bible study, because the same thing applies in our lives when we come up against a situation that's outside of our comfort zone. Like, how do you talk to someone about an assassination attempt on someone like Charlie Kirk and do it from a biblical perspective? Or when something bad happens to you, like you lose a loved one or something like that, the same rule applies. Is when you're confronted with a situation like that where your ideology is attacked or something, you're going to rise to 10 to 20% of your biblical training.
Right.
Your ability to look at this from a divine perspective and see God's plan in it, God's wisdom in it, regardless of what the temporary outcome would be.
Right.
And so that's why, we sort of tongue in cheek call it God and Guns, but we talk a lot about guns, but we do a lot of Bible study as well.
Absolutely. I love our class. I really do. I like it, and we have the same people coming back, and more coming. And it's just a tight group. And we don't always agree in there. That's a fine thing. We don't always agree with what you should do. What we say is you need to make a decision before you're in an environment where you have to make a decision for the first time. And you never know how you're going to react, but at least if you walk through a scenario, you'll have a thought of what you might want to do.
Right.
Example: my job is to protect my wife and my mother. Zink. That's where my training is. Anything else other than that, I'll take the responsibility after I'm protecting them. Less so for somebody else, unless it's an obvious problem. You know what I mean? You see a child being abducted. I'm telling you, man, it's not always black and white. You know what I mean? We watched a video in class that a family was abducting their daughter because she didn't want to move to another state. But it looked like an abduction, man.
Yep. Well, whatever decision we make, we have to also be comfortable with the consequences of that decision.
Right.
Daniel and his three friends were a perfect example of that. His three friends were like, we're not going to do what the king says. We're not going to worship this idol. And, we're probably going to get punished for it. But there's something, this is the decision we're going to make, and we're going to be okay with this, with the consequences.
That's right.
And we have to do the same thing. I'm either going to do X or I'm going to do Y. And I know the consequences for each, and I'm comfortable for that.
That's right. That's exactly right. You can't carry on NAS. Make a decision. Are you going to carry on NAS or are you not going to carry on NAS? If I do carry on NAS and I get caught, well, there's some steep consequences, man. Much more than if you go into a general area that has that sign that says, no guns. That you'll be escorted off, perhaps, might go to jail. I don't know. It's a different story on NAS.
Yeah.
I'm not carrying on NAS. I've made that decision. I'm not.
Right.
I'm not going to do it because those guys and girls know how to use their firearms.
Yep.
Know how to use their canines and everything.
They know how to put you on the ground.
Really quickly, very quickly. So anyway, Chris, anything else you want to say, buddy?
I'm actually good. Quiet.
You're okay. All right. J. Dale, thank you for being here. Thanks for your input. Appreciate you very much. And anything
This went
else?
long today.
Yeah, well, we had a lot to say.
Yep.
It's a somber.
Shorter than normal.
Oh, really? Felt like a long one.
We had a lot of topics.
Yeah.
A lot of topics.
Yeah. It's
Heavy topics.
Yes,
I think that was the
heavy
situation.
topics, right.
Heavy topics.
I just want to say that that we do. Let me get this out so I'm not sure. I want to say I want to dedicate this to Charlie Kirk this episode, and even though, gosh, we didn't personally know him, man, he stood for a lot of stuff that we stand for. He was out there talking about it. He was out there doing it, man.
He was on the front line.
He was on the front lines, and you got to admire a guy like that, man. And it just hurts so much for his young wife and his young children. I just can't.
Proponent of fatherhood.
Yeah.
His children are going to grow up.
Man, oh man. I just hope that the other support team that she has is strong. I mean, the guy. I don't know anything about his parents or her parents, but having a guy like that, you can't help but think that he's had a really good support team in his life. You know what I mean, with his parents. So I hope that that she has somebody that they can step up in her life and help her with those 1-year-old.
Yeah.
Gosh, it's just
And also anyone who's watching this, if there's something you want to add to it or something you feel that needs to be commented, feel free to put something in the comments below in this video.
Please do.
Yes, please do.
We'll be happy to talk about it. I'll probably get back to music next week. I was going to talk about Van Morrison, and I know a little bit about Van Morrison, but we'll talk about him more next week. And everybody, thank y'all very much. Appreciate it. And Donna, I love you. I'll see you soon. Talk to y'all later. Bye.